Hey bro, what are you doing? Not much. I'm just planning to build my own PC. Building my own PC. Is that even a simple thing? Yep, it's actually quite simple. Yeah. Okay, sounds interesting. Let's jump right into it.
Several months later.
Hello there. So I'll be just walking you through the exact process I built my PC. The first step is obviously to go with the motherboard. I chose an Asrock B450M Pro 4, which is kind of considered as the best budget motherboard, but you could always have a look at the other models from MSI if you're looking for one in this budget. I wanted to make sure the entire price of the tower is below 60k. You could always use the box that comes with it as a base while you're installing the processor, RAM, or the CPU cooler onto the motherboard. I'm not sure why I wanted to show the PSU there, but it's an Antec NE 550 watt PSU. It's rated 80 plus bronze and it's semi-modular, so you could always keep the cables you don't need aside. It's a Ryzen 5 processor, Seagate 1TB HDD, Crucial 500GB SSD, and this is the Sniper X 16 gigs of RAM from G.Skill, and this is the GTX 1650 Super graphics card from MSI. So the first step is obviously the installation of the processor itself onto the motherboard. It does come with a stock cooler, but I would always suggest going with an aftermarket cooler, especially if you're planning to run heavy applications or do heavy gaming on it. And especially if you live in a hot area, you would definitely want to keep the temperatures in check. One thing to keep in mind here is to make sure the little triangle or the dot on the processor is aligned with the little triangle on the motherboard. The motherboard comes with two brackets which do not go with many of the CPU coolers, so you should be removing them before installing your CPU cooler. Always make sure that the AMD logo is facing away from the RAM slots, and always make sure that you start with one screw and jump to the opposite one and not the adjacent one, to make sure that the pressure on the processor is even from all sides. And also do not screw in too tight. It's always a good time to stop when you're not able to turn the screw anymore without using excessive force. The next step is to go with the installation of RAM. Always make sure to keep the knobs open on the motherboard before you install the RAM into the slots. And it's advisable to use the second and the fourth slots on the motherboard for RAM installation. There I was installing the Crucial MX500 M.2 SSD. You don't need any extra cables for this like you would in the case of a SATA drive or an external HDD. And that would be the graphics card. It also comes with a similar knob like the RAM ones. So make sure to keep it open before you install the graphics card into the PCIe slot. And there I just connected the wires from PSU onto my motherboard. There are two connectors and the other one goes onto the graphic card to power the GPU. And there are additional wires or connectors that you could use to power your HDD or the case fans. And it's always advisable to do a post test, which is a power on self test outside the PC, especially if you're a first time builder, to make sure all the parts are working fine and not defective. There it posted and I was actually delighted to see that. So I went ahead and started installing all my parts into the case. The case is an Antec NX310 case. It does come with one rear fan and one front bottom fan pre-installed. So it's always important to install standoffs. These are little screws that make sure that the motherboard is not in contact with the case. It's a little higher, and the number of standoffs you would have to use or their positions would depend on the type of motherboard that you're using. I used a micro ATX motherboard, so there were 8 slots where I had to install standoffs and use the screws that come with your PC or the motherboard to screw your motherboard into those standoffs. I realized the SSD was blocking one of the standoff points, so I had to remove that to install that screw in, and then I fixed it back in. And there, it's obviously important to remove those brackets before installing your GPU, because obviously you would need an opening for your GPU. And this case, as it is a budget one, you have to snap them off. It doesn't come with removable, but there are additional ones that you could use if you would like to at a later stage, so it's not a big deal. So make sure that the knob is open on the motherboard and push your graphics card gently into it, and you'll hear that click sound that will let you know that it's installed perfectly. And one thing to keep in mind, which I missed in an earlier part, is to make sure that you're installing the IO shield before you put the motherboard into the case. That's the thing that most of the first timers miss, and I missed mentioning it in the video, but yeah. And then I went ahead and just started putting everything together. I fixed the rear fan in, and the front one was already fixed. I did buy an aftermarket cooler and a couple of additional fans for my case, but I decided to do a separate video on it because I would have to explain a couple of other things. So yeah, the cable management, keeping in mind that I was going to take it apart in another 2 weeks, wasn't very good in this video, but I made sure I did it a little better the next time I took it apart. And yep, that's pretty much it. Then I powered on my PC, it ran fine, then I installed Windows and just kept going. And there you have it. I think that video actually covers my first time PC building experience quite well. It's been 3 weeks since I built it, and I did have to take it apart after that to replace the CPU cooler and add a couple of case fans, but I decided to do a separate video on that. It's actually been a great overall experience, and the PC is actually quite amazing too, so it's been running really well. I do game a little. I play a lot of CSGO, and I've been getting a constant 280 plus FPS. That's the average, I would say. And on GTA 5 at the highest settings, I get a max of 81 FPS. 81 specifically because my monitor is locked at 81, and I lock the FPS on GTA at 81. So yep. And on the temperature side, it idles at about 40 degrees centigrade, and under max stress it goes till 75, not more than that. I've never seen more than that. Which is actually quite impressive as well, so I'm quite happy with the case and the airflow and the CPU cooler as well. That's actually it. Do let me know in the comments below if you have any kind of questions, or if you're planning to build a similar PC in the future. Drop a like if you liked the video, do subscribe if you loved it. I'm pretty sure it'll be my top 10 subscribers of all time. See you in the next video. Peace out.